Have you ever watched the George Clooney film, The Monuments Men, and wondered who they really were? Well, when my mom told me about these people during World War II, I was suddenly hooked. And now, here I am, about to share their story with you all. The Monuments Men and Women's chief goal was to retrieve art that the Nazis had stolen. The Monuments Men and Women's challenges were that they faced many personal and family sacrifices, and they also operated under a limited amount of resources. And the Monuments Men and Women's successes were that they saved millions of works of art and cultural treasures. They were a group of American and British middle-aged men and women who took time out of their normal lives and joined the Venus Fixers or the Monuments Men. The MFAA, or the Monuments Fine Arts and Archives Program, were recruited to the civil affairs and government sections of the Allied armies. Based on their pre-civilian occupancies as art and history scholars, museum curators and directors, librarians, architects, and more, they consisted of approximately 345 men and women representing 13 nations. Going back a few years before the war, there were several men who were officers that were convinced another war would happen. George Stout was 47, and he was experienced enough to see the great risk of the U.S. becoming involved in another war was that we would lose many works of art and cultural treasures along the way. He outlined an idea of having cultural preservation officers. His letter ultimately made it to President Roosevelt, and what ended up emerging was George Stout's original vision that we know today. The Monuments Men and Women's chief goal was to retrieve art that the Nazis had stolen. When people think of war, the first things that come to mind for many is blood and destruction. And that's what I think is so great about the Monuments Men and Women. And that is that they were a group of people during World War II who didn't want to destroy anything. They wanted to save things. And I think the guts it took to do that is pretty amazing. The Monuments Men and Women faced a lot of challenges. First off, people made personal and family sacrifices. 2 people were actually killed while rescuing art. Ronald E. Balfour and Walter J. Huckfinson. They also operated under a limited amount of resources like tools and food, and their art was usually in cave mines that were booby-trapped. They weren't going to get drafted because of their older age, and yet they volunteered to help. Dean Keller was 42 when he went off to join them and left behind his 3-year-old son and didn't see him for another 2.5 years. The Monuments Men and Women had a lot of successes. For example, according to Smithsonian Magazine, they saved 6,577 paintings, 2,300 drawings of watercolors, 954 prints, 137 pieces of sculpture, 129 pieces of arms or armor, 79 baskets of objects, 484 cases of objects thought to be archives, 78 pieces of furniture, 122 tapestries, 1,200 to 1,700 cases of books or similar things, and 283 cases of contents completely unknown. They saved art from Monet, Rembrandt, Vermeer, Leonardo da Vinci, Donatello, and Michelangelo. They even saved the Mona Lisa. The Western Allies weren't going to be like the bad guys and keep the spoils of war. They were going to give stuff back. It was a victory for democracy to show that personal property couldn't be taken away from people forever and that they would get their stuff back later. You can find art rescued by the Monuments Men and Women throughout the world. Frank Stroke said, "You can wipe out an entire generation. You can burn their homes to the ground and they'll still find a way back. But if you destroy their history, you destroy their achievements, and it's as if they never existed." For more information, check out my blog.